Okay, I wanted to talk about MAC address privacy. I wrote a script slash program that helps to keep your Linux laptop anonymous as much as possible. It also works not only to change your MAC address, but also, and here I am running it, and also, along with your MAC address, it changes your host name. So in router logs and on networks you connect to, you do not have a unique host name. It's a pretty generic host name it changes to, and it should match the MAC address itself. So I have several modes here. There is R mode, which is the high privacy mode. It's continually changing randomized MAC addresses that continue to change at continually changing times. And let me tell you why that's important. Because with MAC address tracking, they can not only use, when someone changes their MAC address, for example, if you have your cron tab set to change it every 10 minutes, that leaves a pattern. So it leaves a pattern on the networks. They can see that the MAC address, if they did proper analysis, they would be able to tell that the MAC address was changing on a consistent time frame, and that would link all of the changed MACs together. So what this does is it continually changes the time periods that the MAC address changes at new, completely randomized addresses. Then also I have I mode on here. That ends up giving you a single randomly generated iPhone MAC address, completely random, but also matches up with Apple's own MAC address OUIs, and also changes your host name to Apple, which is what all iPhones have their host name as. So also we have C, which is interchanging cell phone device mode, mimic mode. What this does is it will cycle through randomized, similar to the R mode from the beginning. This will completely randomize the addresses and continually change them at continually changing times. This is a concept I came up with when I was using Kismet, which is a passive sniffer, and it was able to link up some of the MAC addresses that I had been changing with just simple MAC changer. But not only that, for my Wi-Fi card, which isn't that great of a card, it would tend to revert back to its permanent MAC address. And what this does is it helps to ensure that it sets the MAC address more than once. It continually sets it. Some settings at randomized times, other ones at a continual every 10 minutes period, just to ensure there's no leakage of the permanent MAC address. So then there's S mode, which allows you to type in any MAC address you want it to retain, and it will also help prevent MAC address leaks by setting that address at a every 10-minute or so period. And it does not matter in this case that it's set every 10 minutes for this setting, because you're retaining the same MAC address. It would be just as if it were your real MAC address. So then we have A mode, which will generate a single host name and set it to your computer to change your host name on the networks you're on, and also a completely random device address that may or may not be a cell phone MAC address, but it will also use the default host name of desktop, which is a very common one on the internet. So it kind of helps you blend in. All these settings have their own uses. I want to pull up an article. First, I'm going to run it for you guys since I just ran the program. I'm going to go with I mode because I like to do this when I'm at home, just to use a single address so you do not build up a big backlog of MAC addresses on your router, because that as well can be an issue. So the random or R mode is great for traveling. It's great when you're out and about. It's great when you're just want to retain your privacy in a public location or on the road or at the coffee shop, of course. And this could be helpful for journalists and places where the government may not look kindly on investigative journalism. So as you can see, it changed my computer's name to Apple, and it gave me an Apple MAC address. So it will retain that address for as long as I run this, and I let it run in the background, and I just sit it there, and if I need to change a setting, I do. So right now I keep it on here, and as you can see, it shows that in 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes, it will set that MAC address again, just to make sure, as I told you, my cheap Wi-Fi card tends to reset itself to the permanent address, so this helps prevent that. And that is the original, one of the original reasons I wrote this script. So we're going to pull up an article now, and this is about an Israeli surveillance company that's ready to sell surveillance all over the world, in cities everywhere, across the USA, for example. And what they do is they install these beacons, and those beacons basically will pick up, for example, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here you have an example. They have these installed Wi-Fi beacons, so when your Wi-Fi is on your phone or computer, it is picked up by your MAC address, and that MAC address is linked directly to your identity. Think of it as a serial number for your computer. That's why it's so important to change your MAC addresses, and like I said, a lot of not great Wi-Fi cards tend to revert back to the permanent address. And the thing about it is that there are databases that show where these MAC addresses live. So you probably have your MAC address on a map somewhere of your house. So this literally links directly to your identity. So MAC addresses are as personal as possible. It's basically your serial number for your own device, which you purchased and is linked back in various forms. So we also show an article on drones that are spying on cell phone users for advertisers, and these are also picking up your MAC address. So it's not just stores. We also have advertisers that are picking you up by your MAC address. But first I want to just go over and talk about this Israeli company that's ready to sell these beacons and surveillance systems all over the nation. So they're all over public places like airports, shopping malls. They also have fake Wi-Fi access points. Some of this can be used to do all kinds of attacks on you, to send you malware. These things can be, and they actually do have, ironically, another thing called Piranha they use that is able to hijack your device. So this is an autonomous surveillance system meant to monitor entire metropolitan areas. It's able to locate, list, map, track, analyze, visualize all Wi-Fi networks and identities, which is the MAC address, and that is exactly what it says here. So this is, my script is a solution for some of this. Randomize, say if I was, oops. So we're going to go with R mode and just demonstrate. So as you can see, it changes the host name of the computer, its identification name, as desktop, and changed it to the MAC address in red there, and then it shows a randomly generated time for the next randomized address, which will be completely different each time. It will be done in 724 seconds, and this will continue to cycle as long as you run the script. You can also set it up to be a button. I have it up here at the top here. You can easily add a button and then just move the script to your path for executables, and from there you can chmod executable, and you can then run it as a command from there, or just add it as the button, as I mentioned. So I really wanted to show you this because, as you can see, even Google actually has mapped out all of the MAC addresses for areas on street maps. So like I said, your MAC address likely linked to your identity. This is all public information, so say advertisers or whoever else wanted to find out who was using their public Wi-Fi, they can spy on everything you do, and then they can also put your name on it. So that's what I had today, guys. I hope you like the script. It is for download, as I mentioned, at my GitHub, which I'll put a link to. And if you do not see the link, it is github.com/. /right2privacy/MACcleaner. Okay guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Please like the video, subscribe, share it with people who you think will be interested, and I'll be back later with more on protecting your privacy.